Draft Criminal Finances Act 2017 and Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, Consequential Amendments Regulations 2024.
Call the Minister to move the motion.
Thank you. I beg to move that the committee has considered the following draft statutory instrument: the Criminal Finances Act 2017 and Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, brackets Consequential Amendments Regulation 2024. It's a great pleasure to serve under your chairship, Mr Efford. Can I also say it's a great pleasure to welcome the Shadow Minister to his place. I spent a very long time on that side of the committee room in various shadow ministerial roles. So I hope the Honourable Member for Stockton West will take it in the right spirit when I say that I wish him much longevity on that opposition front bench. I note that he's been busy and that he's already done 2 statutory instruments since his appointment. Opposition is hard work, I know all too well. So as he settles into his important role as a Shadow Home Office Minister, I wish the Honourable Member the very best over the coming months and maybe years. Despite our political differences, I know that we both care deeply about the security and the safety of our country. Therefore, it is in that spirit that I very much hope to work constructively and in the national interest with all of the Shadow Home Office team. Now, before I address the contents of this statutory instrument, I will briefly provide some background. The Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act of 2023 contained a wide range of reforms to reduce economic crime and increase transparency over corporate entities conducting business in the UK. This included reforms to enable targeted information sharing to tackle money laundering and remove reporting burdens on businesses. Additionally, the Act introduced new intelligence gathering powers for law enforcement and reform of outdated criminal corporate liability laws. The reforms to the unexplained wealth orders regime, corporate liability laws and targeted information sharing are already in force. And more recently, guidance for the new offence of failure to prevent fraud was published last week on the 6th of November. The offence itself will come into effect in September of next year, and this will allow organisations to develop their fraud prevention measures before the offence comes into force. The Act also introduced, and this is of most relevance to the debate this morning, a new regime to tackle criminal and terrorist crypto assets. The use of crypto assets in illegal activity is increasing. When introducing and reviewing legislation, we must consider emerging technologies and how they can be harnessed by criminals to commit crimes or hide their ill-gotten gains. Under the previous government, a bespoke regime was included in the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 to allow the effective seizure of both criminal and terrorist crypto assets. This regime was introduced into the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act of 2023 to make it easier to confiscate crypto assets from criminals and forfeit crypto assets that are obtained from or intended to be used in either crime or terrorism. On the 26th of April, the crypto assets measures that this debate relates to came into force. The powers are operational in England and Wales. As of the end of October, over 80 cases have exercised the new powers, including crypto asset seizures or confiscation cases involving crypto assets. Now, I do not intend to cover the content of the powers themselves, as they were debated extensively by both houses during the passage of the Act. I will instead outline briefly the purpose of the instrument and the reason that we are gathered here this morning. The regulations will make a set of amendments that are consequential on the Criminal Finance Act of 2017 and the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act of 2023. The regulations address missed consequential amendments to the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002 and ensure that the investigative powers that Act included, for example, reference to crypto asset investigations, are included in all necessary sections of the powers in order that they function properly and act in accordance with the policy intention. So to conclude, Mr. Chairman, this instrument is required to complete commencement of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act of 2023. This will ensure that all necessary legislation is in place and that there is legal certainty as to how cases will be dealt with. I commend the statutory instrument to the committee.
The question is that the committee has considered the draft Criminal Finances Act 2017 and Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, Consequential Amendments, Regulations 2024. Shadow Minister.
I thank the Minister for his welcome and look forward to him returning to the comfy seat on this side in the not too distant future. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Mr Efford. I thank the Minister for bringing forward these regulations to tackle economic crimes and fraud. As a country, it's right that we empower our law enforcement agencies with the necessary tools to address these pressing issues. The Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act was introduced in the last Parliament to specifically confront the challenges of economic crime and corporate transparency. It was a necessary piece of legislation to ensure that we keep our country safe, our economic jurisdictions clean. Turning specifically to the regulations under discussion today, the Minister has rightly highlighted the need to tighten them to ensure their effectiveness. As I understand it, these regulations were originally scheduled for discussion prior to the last election. It's appropriate they are adapted to align with the original intentions of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act. A key aim of the legislation passed by the previous government was to simplify powers, and it's therefore appropriate for the government to do all it can to facilitate this process. The Minister highlighted crypto assets. The use of crypto assets in illegal activities has been a worrying development over the last decade. While it's challenging to ascribe specific figures, the National Crime Agency has suggested that over $1 billion in illicit cash is transferred overseas. Additionally, analysis by Chain Analysis found that globally, the total value of cryptocurrency received by illicit addresses exceeded £24 billion in 2023. Therefore, I'm pleased to hear that the new powers outlined in the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act, which are operational in England and Wales, have been exercised in over 80 cases as of the end of October, including cases involving the seizure and confiscation of crypto assets. We must ensure that seizures can continue effectively. I'd like to press the Minister for further clarity on a few specific points. Can the Minister outline whether they anticipate an increase in the number of custodial sentences as a result of these regulations? Can the Minister clarify how these regulations fit within their department's broader approach to cryptocurrencies? Has the Minister made any assessment of the types of cases in which these assets have been seized, and will the department ensure that its strategy is robust in addressing the cases? Moving forward, it will be essential to adapt and evolve the UK's legislative response to economic crime. No matter how ingenious criminals may believe they are, we must always be prepared to thwart their efforts. I hope these regulations will play some small part in advancing this mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Can I thank the Minister for the constructive tone of his remarks? I'm very grateful for it. I was also particularly pleased to hear him reference the National Crime Agency. It provides me with a good opportunity to pay tribute to the work that they do in this particular area. They don't always get the acclaim that I think that they deserve. They are fantastically dedicated public servants, and on matters relating to economic crime, and on other matters as well, I think they do an extraordinary job in order to serve the public. Shadow Minister raised a number of entirely reasonable and constructive points. He pressed me on the need to ensure that the work that we are doing sits as part of a broader strategy, and I can absolutely give him that assurance. These are matters that I discussed in opposition with the then Minister. We worked cooperatively on a cross-party basis on them. Matters relating to cryptocurrency and the seizure of such assets, and matters relating to economic crime are not matters of party politics, and certainly it will be my intention to work cooperatively with the Shadow Minister and with members from all sides of the House to progress the work that we are doing in government. He also rightly, I think, made the point about ensuring that the government's legislative approach keeps up with emerging technology and with the developing tactics and techniques of criminals. Criminals can be incredibly cunning. It is part of the nature of the way in which they operate, particularly in the field of economic crime, that the rapid rate of technology and the different measures that they employ, very much on an internationalised basis, means that government and law enforcement agencies must constantly be reviewing their approach and ensuring that we are not just seeking to keep pace with criminals, but we are in fact one step ahead of them. The Minister also asked, I think, an entirely reasonable point about whether the government considers that as a consequence of the changes to the legislation, there will likely be an increase in arrests and in custodial sentences. I think that is an entirely reasonable point. I think rather than give him an answer that is not as considered as I would want it to be, I will write to him on that particular point, because I think that is an entirely fair question, but it is one that I'd want to take advice, and I will come back to him as soon as possible. I think, Mr Chair, there's nothing more that I can add other than to thank the committee for considering this statutory instrument. As I've set out, it is necessary to complete the commencement of the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act of 2023, and I therefore commend the instrument to the committee and beg to move.
The question is that the committee has considered the Draft Criminal Finances Act 2017 and Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act 2023, Consequential Amendments, Regulations 2024. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.